No doubt that you're aware that the powers that be, in an effort to silence the competition, in an effort to shift the Overton window so they are able to control what is and what is not acceptable, have been demanding censorship of Joe Rogan. Originally, it was for misinformation because he had leading experts in their field on to discuss the COVID vaccines. When that didn't stick, it morphed into racism, as they wielded a clip of Joe using the N-word on his show, not as a pejorative and, of course, out of context. Using this technique, they were able to turn original supporters of Rogan, like The Rock, against him and extract an apology out of Joe, despite the fact that he in no way used it as a slur. Of course, apologizing to the woke mob is like throwing blood into the water during a shark feeding frenzy. They eat you up, become energized, and move on to their next victim, stronger and more emboldened. The zombie horde will destroy all that's in its path. But this raises the question, according to the woke, who gets to use the N-word? I want to go over this completely scientifically. Apparently, according to woke logic, when you are black, you get unfettered use of the N-word. Dave Chappelle, for example, can't go 2 sentences without throwing it into his act. This is why it was the trans activists that went after him rather than the other woke grievance mongers. Because he was black, he was protected, so they developed a workaround to get by his shield. Let's go down from being pure African to being 75% black. Good news, everybody, you're likely okay. Now we get to some dicey situations here. What if you're 50% black? Mathematically, in my opinion, 50%, you round up. Lord knows they did so for Obama. Do you think that the woke would be complaining vociferously if Obama went around dropping N-bombs? Of course not. However, pro tip, if you are in fact half black, make sure that you have darker rather than lighter skin. But what about somebody like me? Yeah, what about my use of the word? I'm sure that instantly many of you are revolted or just shaking your heads, thinking to yourself, Rich, please don't do it. But hear me out. Please first listen to my qualifications. I have a higher percentage of sub-Saharan African blood inside of me than Elizabeth Warren does Native American, and she used those few droplets to go around and get herself really high-paying jobs with Harvard advertising that they had a person of color on staff. Should I deny my African heritage? Are you asking me to be ashamed of it? Racists. But if y'all still say, Rich, that ain't gonna go over well, you're gonna get canceled, okay, maybe. But let me propose another little scenario to you and see how that adjusts and fits into woke logic. What if I identify as black? Like Rachel Dolezal in all of those years that she worked at the NAACP, nobody kicked her out. Do you think, and I'm just imagining here, that she went up and down the halls yelling N-word this, N-word that, like most people in the office did? At least that's how I imagine things go there, based on my experience on the basketball court, which I'll get to momentarily. Again, I truly have sub-Saharan African blood in me. What does it take to be biologically black versus what does it take to be biologically male? To be biologically male takes one, just one, and only one Y chromosome. You know how many trans men have? 0. 0 Y chromosomes. 0 is the correct answer. But if I refuse to acknowledge the manhood of someone with 0 Y chromosomes because he identifies as such, according to woke society, I am a monster and they will put my head on the guillotine. So if I, as someone with actual sub-Saharan DNA in my biological makeup, according to my 23andMe test, identify as black, who are you to tell me that I'm not? And given the fact that by woke logic, I must be recognized as I identify, and much like trans men should not be denied use of the women's locker room, why should I be denied my rightful use of the N-word? But that is not how it's treated. I know because I played a lot of basketball in my life and that word was used with abandon on the court, even occasionally by the black players. Just kidding. Those are the only players that it was used by. You, my N-word. N-word, please. Let's go, N-word. But if you're going to use it, don't act like it is so injurious. Like there is some chemical reaction that black plus N-word is totally fine, but white plus N-word is complete toxicity. And yes, I absolutely acknowledge the horrific, historic use of the word. And yes, also, I rarely use it amongst my black friends, even though I identify as black. Okay, I don't use it. Except for this one time. I harken back to an era where I was playing basketball on a daily basis with the same group of black fellas. My nemesis, K, who was black, who, to describe it scientifically, made a bunch of bitch-ass foul calls on a regular basis, brings the ball up court, and I stripped his ass clean. And he, of course, yells foul. And at that moment, I turned around and I said, please. And the court went silent. People all looked at each other. I turned ready to sprint away. And then they all erupted with laughter. Why? Because I knew those guys for months. Because they knew that based on the context, underlying the word context, that I didn't mean it as a slur. Or perhaps they respected the fact that I identified as black. No, it's the context. And that is exactly what is missing from the Rogan clip. And this is an obvious attempt to cancel him and redistribute his audience amongst the corporate media. And that really doesn't sit well with me. So in support of Joe, and knowing that he absolutely did not mean anything negative by it, no slur was meant, I'm going to reach out in support. I'm going to state publicly, Joe Rogan, you my nigga. And I mean that in the best possible way. And if you get the idea to cancel me, just remember, I identify as black. And my editor better not have bleeped out my support. Guys, leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on this subject. I'm very curious. Thumb up the video, subscribe, hit the all notification bell, share the video. YouTube will not, definitely not, those censorious efforts. And have a fantastic day.